He advised me, the detectives were on the phone. Your warrant is for, I believe, a sexual battery warrant. Well, you said you were a teacher, so good thing it's summertime at least, so it gives you some time to figure this out.
A Marine veteran turned middle school teacher finds himself out of the classroom and in the back of a squad car, charged with sexually abusing a child.
I'm trying to link anything that's happened in the last, I don't know, years. And
yeah, this could be from yesterday, last week, last month, last year. I don't know. That information I don't have. You'd probably know more than I would.
We have the report directly from police detailing how a once respected community figure is now coming face to face with horrific allegations of betrayal, threats of violence, and manipulation. And law enforcement are now confronted with another crucial question. Are there more victims out there? We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. On paper, 40-year-old Brian Pavluchuk has a very honorable track record of serving for the greater good. He was an infantry rifleman in the U.S. Marine Corps for 5 years, serving on the front lines in Iraq, along with deployments to places like Bahrain and Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. Now, at the time, he had plans to re-enlist, but his physical injury stopped him from being able to do so. And that's when Pavluchuk decided to pursue a teaching degree at Florida Atlantic University. That's part of his transition back into the civilian world. Pavluchuk would go on to be an educator for the next 13 years. His most recent role was a 7th grade civics teacher at Punta Gorda Middle School in Florida. He was also involved in helping Florida's young generation in other ways, like being a sponsor for the National Junior Honor Society and the Fishing Club, a former flag football and soccer coach at Englewood Sky Academy, along with using his military background as a young Marines instructor with the Imagine Upper Campus School for students from 8th grade through high school. When you look at all of this, Pavluchuk appeared to have a passion for helping young people become the best version of themselves. But behind the scenes, according to these allegations, a completely different and horrific story was allegedly unfolding, including a decade of sexual misconduct against multiple different minors, ones that reportedly trusted him as either family or their mentor. So now you might be wondering, where did this all go wrong? We're going to go through the disturbing details from the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office step by step, leading to the moments caught on police body cam where Pavluchuk ended up in the back of a squad car headed to the police station. And later on, we'll also talk to an attorney straight out of Florida about all the details related to this investigation. So let's get into it. This case begins, at least for law enforcement, on July 1st. When a male victim reported to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office that he was sexually abused as a child on multiple occasions, and this is all around 2017, by Brian Pavluchuk, who would have been at the time between 29 and 31 years old. You fast forward to July 10th, and a detective brings the male victim in for an interview, and the victim states that Brian Pavluchuk was introduced to him through a person who served with Pavluchuk in the Marine Corps, and eventually they become close family friends. The victim told police the first inappropriate incident occurred when Pavluchuk was visiting his family during summer break, and he observed a redacted party sitting naked on Pavluchuk's lap while playing a computer game. Now, while the report does not reveal who or how old the person was who was sitting on Pavluchuk's lap, it appears to be a male victim who is a minor. Now, eventually, the male victim said that Pavluchuk moved to Sarasota County and he began living with his family. And this is where the alleged sexual abuse begins. Quote, the victim described the first sexual abuse incident occurring at this house in the bathroom adjacent to a bedroom. The victim stated Brian asked him to accompany Brian into the bathroom and instructed him to remove his clothing, end quote. Now, the rest of this portion of the affidavit, it is too graphic to read word for word, but the victim goes on to tell the detective that Pavluchuk allegedly attempted to perform anal sex on him, but it was unsuccessful, with Pavluchuk explaining he was, quote, just a kid. The detective asked if Pavluchuk ever put his private parts on the victim's behind, and he reportedly said yes, and that partial penetration did occur. Again, these are very difficult allegations to talk about, and these allegations, they're difficult to hear, but according to the victim, sadly, this was just the beginning. He told the detective that Pavluchuk's sexual abuse occurred on multiple occasions for approximately a year and a half, also taking place at a separate address that Pavluchuk lived at. Now, there are several examples of sexual abuse that law enforcement are alleging in this case. And again, these are very disturbing allegations. And along the way, multiple occasions of alleged sexual abuse, this victim describes their dynamic taking a dark turn. Quote, the victim said the abuse became normalized and he initially trusted Brian completely, viewing him as a friend. The victim stated that when he realized that he wanted the sexual activity to stop, he distanced himself from Brian. The victim stated Brian tried to talk to him, but he ignored him. The victim stated Brian asked him, quote, why don't you love me anymore? And became upset at the rejection. The victim described a confrontation with Brian that resulted in the end of the sexual abuse. The victim stated that he was eating dinner at a table when Brian emerged from his bedroom and said, quote, if you don't bleeping love me anymore, then just bleeping kill me, and handed him a handgun. The victim stated he called his mom, who then called law enforcement. The victim stated that he has not seen or spoken to Brian since that incident. Guys, real quick before we get more into this, most of us don't think about healthcare until something changes. Maybe it's a move, new job, health scare, and suddenly you're looking for doctors, comparing insurance plans, and trying to make the best decisions for yourself and your family. This is where our sponsor ZocDoc comes in. Now, if you're like me, you're probably good at putting things off, especially making doctor's appointments, but with ZocDoc's free app and website, you can search and compare local in-network doctors, and you're able to check that off your to-do list even faster. And you can read patient reviews, detailed doctor profiles. You can get a sense of the doctor before you even make the appointment. And you're also able to make the appointment usually within 24 to 72 hours. You can also do it same day in a lot of cases, which is great. Your health matters, and taking care of yourself shouldn't be complicated. Find and book the right doctor with ZocDoc. Head to ZocDoc.com/Chris to get started and check that appointment off your to-do list. That is ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/Chris. Now, according to the police report, the lead detective searched the sheriff's office database for prior cases involving Pavluchuk, and they did find one stemming from 2017. It appears to describe the same confrontation. Quote, on January 10th, 2017, deputies responded to a residence for a disturbance and spoke to Brian, 30 years old at the time of the report, who stated that he was, quote, frustrated and fed up, but he wouldn't elaborate on what that meant. Brian admitted getting into a dispute because his family friend told Brian that he, quote, will have to move out. Deputies spoke to the family friend who said that he told Brian that he had to move out and that he, quote, did not like him. Person reported Brian then retrieved a handgun and tried giving it to him and said, if you hate me so much, why don't you bleeping kill me? And this resulted in Brian being removed from the residence and corroborates the male minor victim's statement regarding the time that he last saw Brian, according to police. Now, keep in mind, Pavluchuk's charges stem from this male minor victim in particular, and we're going to go into more details about those charges here in a moment. But to make this whole thing even more horrific, there is even more allegations of sexual misconduct with minors in the years that followed. The lead detective continued to search different databases for additional reports involving Pavluchuk and found one under the Northport Police Department. That report allegedly documented inappropriate physical contact by Pavluchuk on multiple boys ages 13 to 15 during his time as the Young Marines instructor with the Imagine Upper Campus School, serving students from ages 8 through high school. According to the report, Pavluchuk is accused of inappropriately touching the genitals of male boys as a, quote, game referred to as, quote, nut tapping, and made them feel uncomfortable. However, there was reportedly no record of an arrest at that time. So fast forward now to July 21st, we're in this year, almost 2 weeks after the interview with the initial male minor victim, and the detective conducted a controlled call with the same victim and Pavluchuk on the topic of the alleged sexual abuse. And the affidavit gave the following synopsis of their conversation. The victim told Brian he was thinking about joining the Marine Corps and asked for advice. The victim told Brian he was scared the Marine Corps would administer a polygraph test and asked, do you think they're going to ask about like past relationships or anything? The victim said, it's just, dude, it's been stressing me out because of like everything that happened in our past, you know? Brian replied, quote, and this is key, so here's the thing is, I wouldn't worry about it. They're not going to polygraph you. The victim stated, I know, I told you I did not like what was going on, you know? What I'm talking about? Brian responded, So the thing is, they're not going to look into any of that, you know? And they're not going to say, hey, whatever, unless you bring it up, dude. Does that make sense? The victim then stated, yeah, I was just a kid, you know? I didn't understand. Like, now I understand. You were just teaching. Brian replied, no, nothing like that will ever come up or anything like that. And it won't hurt you. Like I said, what you divulge, unless it's on an adult criminal record or anything like that, end quote. So the conversation keeps going. And this is what police say. The victim continued by stating, I'm just worried because they frown upon dude on dude relationships, you know? Brian responded, that's the Marine Corps. And I'll tell you right now, they are the most homoerotic place I've ever been is the Marine Corps. The victim then asks, so again, as long as I don't tell them that we had sex or anything guy on guy, then I should be good, right? And Brian responded, but the answer in the police report that's been released is redacted. Brian did not deny the sexual contact referenced by the victim and instead reassured him that polygraph testing would not be an issue, according to police. When evaluating what we have seen so far, the alleged evidence against Pavluchuk, let's face it, it's not looking good. But there is a final interview that the detective wants to conduct, and that's with family friends who reportedly let Brian Pavluchuk live with them at the same residence that the male minor victim claims he was sexually abused. This interview takes place the following day, so we're on July 22nd now, and they begin to describe the family dynamic with Pavluchuk in the house. Quote, the family friends both confirmed there were multiple occasions Brian was alone with the boys, often offering to watch them and take them places. During this time, two of their children referred to Brian as a Manny, so male nanny, due to his care of the children. The family friends also observed Brian physically touching the boys, often including tickling and cuddling them, end quote. So initially it looks like Pavluchuk is getting along really well with this family and even helping with babysitting duties, but then some strange observations were allegedly made. Quote, one of the family friends recalled Brian holding the hand of one of their children while they were sleeping. The family friend explained the boys were all sleeping on the floor in the living room while Brian was sleeping on the couch. One of the family friends stated he walked by the living room and observed Brian holding the hand of one of their children, which he described as seeming odd at the time, but thought Brian may have been comforting him due to a nightmare. Both family friends further explained that at times they felt Brian's behavior towards the boys seemed odd, but they brushed it off because they thought he just preferred to be around children since he was a teacher. Additionally, they stated Brian's role as a teacher and Marine Corps veteran made them believe he could be trusted. One of the family friends stated she now believes Brian gained their trust so he could have access to her children and now realizes Brian was grooming the boys so he could sexually abuse them, end quote. Wow. So at this point, the detective, it appears, has heard enough, and Brian Pavluchuk is charged with one count of sexual battery by a familial or custodial person 18 years or older on a victim under 12 years of age, along with a count of lewd and lascivious molestation under the same circumstances. For both charges, Pavluchuk does face up to life in prison if he is convicted. But before we get into where things stand right now, I want to head back to that police body cam footage. So 3 days later, on July 24th, Pavluchuk is taken into custody at his residence with assistance from the DeSoto County Sheriff's Office and the U.S. Marshals Task Force. And the footage gives us a glimpse into Pavluchuk's demeanor as he sits in the squad car and gets taken into the police station for processing.
That deputy said that was Shoemaker, works for Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. He advised me, the detectives were on the phone. Your warrant is for, I believe, a sexual battery warrant. All I know is it's sexual battery out of Sarasota. Again, I don't work for Sarasota, so I don't know anything more besides the fact that they wrote a warrant for a sexual battery case.
Nope, understand. I'm still trying to process everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you can ask me what you want. I'll try to tell you what I know, and if something comes in between now and then. So like I said, the faster I get you up there, we'll get you booked in, and then you should get a copy of the warrant through the jail system, and they can tell you a little bit more of the specifics because they'll have the actual affidavit and or warrant stuff from Sarasota County. All I have is just, you see what I have. Nothing but, hey, there's a warrant for this guy. And again, if it gets hot, I don't think your air is on, so let me know. I'll turn it on for you.
I'm good. I'm just still trying to process everything. And
Sure, I got you, my man.
with sexual battery, I was like, all right, why is it warrant? Or marshals here, full blown. I get it, but. Now, is that like, I'm just curious, is that standard, or was like there a tip like, hey, he could be violent or anything?
So, like I said, yeah. So my understanding, again, with the Marshal Service, I used to do the Marshal Service with them. All it means is there's a local officer from every agency, pretty much, that gets tasked with part of the being with the Marshal Service because it brings more numbers. So, and us in DeSoto County, we're a very small sheriff's office. So I think that it was adopted through them to have more resources there, just because I can tell you, the sheriff's office, we don't have nearly half as many people. Sarasota is 400 or 500 deputies. I think we're like 65 deputies. So I don't know if it has to do with your ex-military background. Maybe they thought they needed to make more hands.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I have firearms.
And anytime, it's America, one, and it's Florida, everybody has a firearm. Where there's one, there's two, so I guess safety in numbers, realistically.
I figured that. I don't know, if a deputy or detective said, hey, come with me, I would have just...
Sure.
I didn't need all this, and I'm still trying to figure out.
More often than not, most people have no issue with law enforcement will come, but, I guess maybe they justify why they have the marshals, agencies, budgets, things of that nature.
It's already said and done. There's no, am I even get talked to or interviewed or anything?
All I'm doing is transporting you. So typically that means a detective or someone who's working the case are going to come interview you. I'd imagine, yeah. Because if I'm a detective for my agency, if I want to know more about you, I'd want to know what I'm gonna call you a suspect because technically you're in jail. So I'd want to interview the suspect too and get their statement. I don't know if they've done that yet or not. So in theory, I would imagine someone's going to come talk to you from Sarasota.
I'm trying to link anything that's happened in the last I don't know, years. And
yeah, this could be from yesterday, last week, last month, last year. I don't know. That information I don't have. You'd probably know more than I would.
you were sitting on my house, you said?
I got tasked with doing surveillance this morning for them, yeah.
If, let's say, because normally I go for morning walks, let's say I went for a walk, what would have happened? Or just, you would have...
I probably wouldn't have done anything because, it's not my case. If it was my case, I'd have went and arrested you as I saw you.
Okay.
But since I was just told to provide surveillance until they came, I don't have an answer of what I could have done. Essentially, I'd say I probably wouldn't do anything until they got on scene, which is what happened.
Yeah, normally I'm up, I'm just not whatever, then I normally go for a walk about 9 o'clock.
Yeah, if they were there and they saw you walking, they might have just stopped out with you and grabbed you while you were walking. I don't know.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Yeah, I don't know how they're...
I'm just, normally I walk or do something, but I'm thinking well, what happens if I just, I normally just, went to the store or something, but...
Well, I mean, yeah, they got a warrant for you, so one way or the other, they would have arrested you, whether it was at the house, nobody wants to do anything in public because the danger to society, innocent people. Again, not that you were going to do anything like that, but we don't know that.
Here's the thing, is I don't blame you guys either way because, I do have firearms in the house and, carry a firearm and all that type of jazz, so I don't blame you guys going. And you have my phone in my wallet, you said?
I don't have your phone. I have your wallet. I didn't see a phone at all. He didn't mention anything about a phone.
Somebody had my phone.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll try to reach out to them when I get there and see what's going on with that then. He just gave me your wallet, which is right here.
Okay.
I don't know if they put it back in your house then, gave it to the neighbor maybe.
God forbid, I mean, I hate to say if my mother calls me, she'll freak out.
Sure. I will do some digging for you and try to get back with you.
Yeah, no worries, man. I appreciate it. I'm just, I don't know, this was not planned for fighting. I respect you guys, so, man.
Well, you said you were a teacher, so good thing it's summertime at least, so it gives you some time to figure this out.
Well, that soon, I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you to the jail so you can get it all figured out as quick as you can.
How public is all this? Because,
well, anything is a public record, but someone has to go search it. I mean, you'll get posted as an arrest on the sheriff's office jail website, because every jail posts who's arrested daily, and then whatever your charges are would be listed on there, but people would have to go actually searching that versus it being broadcasted.
So that's...
How fast it gets posted, I don't know. All that, yeah, that could be as quick as an hour. It could be as long as 24 hours.
And how long are they going to be out front, do you know?
How long they're going to be what?
Out front of the house.
Oh, they're gone now, yeah. As soon as I left, there was no reason for them to stay.
Okay.
Yeah, they're leaving. That team is just there to do the arrests. And you know, if you're not there, there's no point in them being there. You can swing your feet out. As you can see, the sign says I can't remove you. You'll be removed by the deputies here in a second.
Okay.
But you can swing your feet out real quick. Give yourself a little more room.
Okay. And then I can stand and move or no?
You gotta sit there. No, yeah, you can just sit there and keep your feet on the ground. So, and then I'll give this. They'll come out and give you a spiel about medical stuff, etc. So I'm putting this right here, my man.
Thanks, man. I mean, it's hard to ruin your guys' day. I mean,
no, I gotta work either way. So I'm here.
I'm still at Central Battery. I'm like, what happened to Sarasota?
Oh man, a lieutenant. I like that. A working man. Said a lieutenant, a working man. I like that. How you doing?
Doing good.
Wonderful.
Last stage.
How you doing?
Transporting.
Been under. Have you been in any accidents? More accidents? Oh yeah. Military. I'm saying like recently. No. No, I mean, I got some.
There's a number in here. He needs to do whatever for calling. It was a adopted case for the Marshal Service, but it's out of Sarasota County, so it's just going to come in as an out-of-county warrant for the PCA, and then I'll go get the hit for y'all.
Are you under the influence of drugs or alcohol right now? No. Before you come into the jail, do you have any contraband on you, such as firearms, narcotics? I don't. I got sweat on my eye. I'm trying to put down. Okay. All right. Come on with me. Okay.
I'll grab the cuffs when I come back with the PCA.
Do you have a cell phone, wallet, anything?
I have a wallet, and you're trying to figure out who has my cell phone. I don't know who he was trying to figure it out, because some guy had it. I got a number, and
In that okay,
I don't know if they put it back in the house, or what really happened. I don't really know what's going on, to be quite honest with you. He kind of told me a little bit about it, and I'm still confused, so.
Okay. Do you have any jewelry on, anything like that?
No, I really no matter, no nothing.
If you can face this door for me real quick from ours out. All right, turn around, face me, please.
Pavluchuk remains in the Sarasota County Jail without bond, and he's due back in court for a pretrial detention hearing on July 31st, with his arraignment scheduled for August 28th. Now, in the midst of this whole ordeal, it's hard to imagine what the alleged victim's family is going through. but you also have to think about the broader community that he has played a major role in, including his teaching role at Punta Gorda Middle School. The Charlotte County Public Schools Public Information Officer released the following statement, quote, "We are deeply troubled by the arrest made today involving a Charlotte County Public Schools employee. While this matter did not occur within a school setting, we want to be clear that every CCPS employee is held to the highest standards of professionalism and integrity both on and off campus. We understand the concern and disappointment this creates within our community, and we take these matters seriously. The individual has been placed on administrative leave as we follow established procedures and continue to work closely with the appropriate authorities. We encourage anyone with information related to this matter to contact local law enforcement." The Sarasota County Sheriff's Office also is urging anyone with additional information regarding this case or other possible victims to contact the Criminal Investigations Section at 941-861-4900 as this investigation remains ongoing. Joining us now to talk about this case, very disturbing one, is Chris Klotz, sex abuse attorney with Alstock, Witkin, Crease, and Overholtz. Always great to have you on Law and Crime. And the allegations, and they are just allegations at this point, that this teacher is facing, though it didn't happen at school, it's just so disturbing, the detail that this victim is alleging. It's very specific what the victim's alleging, and this is something that goes back almost a decade, allegedly to 2017. Like, from a prosecutor's standpoint, like, how do you prove this? You know, what more can you gather other than, obviously what's really important is the victim's perspective on everything, but how can you prove that all of this happened?
Yeah, and so, this is one of those cases where you have a long history of abuse with one or more. I would, there's probably more, but there's one individual who's identified that there had been inappropriate contact, and the description of the inappropriate, illegal sexual contact with this child suggests that at the time that this was like actively happening, there would have been DNA evidence or some type of physical evidence that would have been available for prosecutors. That always, that's the kind of case a prosecutor would like to have, is where you actually have DNA evidence, which is either some type of, saliva or semen or other bodily fluid where it's obviously not supposed to be. And then that makes the case much easier to prosecute. In this case, it seems like the incidents weren't reported until well after maybe there was any DNA evidence available. So it will usually just be, the statements of the survivors in the case, which is always enough to make a case. A prosecutor would just like to have, some physical evidence, but you can completely make a case with one person's, word versus another person's word.
I want to go into some of the allegations here, and we don't specifically know the age because it's redacted, at least in the police report we have, of the victim. But the charge that this teacher, Brian Pavluchuk's facing, is sexual abuse of a victim under the age of 12. And so we know that this victim was incredibly young when this sex abuse allegedly happened. And what stands out to me as you kind of go through the police report is, now in hindsight, you read the allegations and clearly, if this is true, we are talking about sexual abuse. But some of the details that this victim is giving, it seems like a lot of this was normalized back in the day. And it may not be until years later that you have a victim truly understanding just how terrible it was, what they went through. Like, how often do you see that in these cases?
All the time. And that's what the whole issue of grooming is about, is where you have somebody usually older or in a position of authority or position of trust over a child, who slowly acclimates them to absolutely any legal and illegal course of conduct, illegal conduct which involves touching or sex. And that is the way that grooming impacts young people and sometimes older people. But when older people who are very skilled at manipulating, like child abusers or predators are, start to groom a child, it can all seem very normal to the child, especially if the person is somebody who's in a position of trust or authority. Like in this case, I believe that the perpetrator in this case, actually lived with a family where this abuse was happening. And it's easy to slide into something very slowly over time. And that is why, as parents, we all have to be on guard for looking for any type of grooming behavior behavior that may be happening with our children or our loved ones.
Because I also think too, because as you go through this, and he was a manny, like male nanny, they say is what they considered him as, and it wasn't really clear how he came in touch with this family and became, this, third adult in the household. But it feels like there's a sense of like grooming almost to the parents as well, because now it's being alleged that he was around these kids a lot, that they were alone, he would touch children. I don't know if they believed it was in an inappropriate way, but there was a level of trust that he was able to get with the adults in this house to have him
Yeah.
around these kids. Like, absolutely, you see the grooming element when it comes to the victim, and we often hear about that. But how does it happen with parents? Because there are other cases too. Like, I remember some of the teacher cases we've talked about where, suddenly a teacher wants to take a kid on a ride home from school or something like that, and the parents feel that level of trust because of what they are. And it's like there's almost a sense of grooming going on there as well to get access to the victims in these
100%.
cases.
100%. The grooming can involve the parents and the kids. And the perpetrators, these predators, are so skillful at laying the groundwork for setting themselves up to be trustworthy, or that they just really care a lot about the family or their kids. And it's easy to become very cynical, right? We see these cases all the time. Me as a parent doing what I do, I'm always very attuned with people who have an interest that may be, kind of over the top in my kids when they were younger. They're grown-ups now. They're young adults, but um, I hate to advise people to be cynical about it, but always at least empower your kids to have a conversation with you and say, hey, listen, you know what? There's bad people out there. There may be some times where people are trying to gain your trust to maybe touch you in a certain way. Have that conversation early and often with your kids to let them know it's not appropriate, because what the predators are really good at doing is normalizing the conduct. Oh, this touching or this, being undressed in front of each other is completely normal. It's nothing to worry about. They're hearing that, but they've never heard from their parents, hey, you know what? Nobody's supposed to do that. If that happens, let me know. If that happens, it's wrong. What the predators are good at doing is making it seem like it's totally normal conduct, and the child may not have ever heard from somebody else, a trusted adult, that that's not normal conduct.
No, and you think of this person, Pavluchuk. I mean, not only is he currently a teacher, but he was the head of a group called Young Marines. He was a Marine Corps vet, seems himself. There are pictures of him online coaching, like flag football. So this is someone who was given a lot of trust by a lot of people to be in charge of children. And I feel like that sense of like, as a parent, you know, being cynical, but it's like easier said than done, because like this is the type of person, like the resume version, you're like, this is the type of person you would want around your kids. And it's like, I feel like though in hindsight, we can look and say like, clearly this guy, if all of this is true, is a terrible predator. But you can see how these people can kind of slide into lives and suddenly get access to children and do it almost right in front of the parents without them knowing what's going on.
Yeah, especially when, parents are busy these days. The parents are always busy.
Right.
Parents are working. They're trying to maintain a household. They're trying to keep their career. And if they feel like they've got some relief, man, I've got this person who's really going to help me with my kids. You want to believe that they're doing the right things and not harming your kids. And so it's easy maybe to get lost in the relief of having some help as a parent. But at least for me, the thing that I always tell other parents, and I have these conversations with my kids too, is that be on the lookout. Even if somebody seems like they're a good person, just make sure, ask questions. You don't have to ask them in an ugly way. And you don't have to talk to your kids in an ugly way about it. Just say, hey, listen, you know what? Your body is your body. If anybody tries to touch you, that is not normal. And you need to let me know, or you need to let a trusted adult know. And, it's a lot about having a conversation with your children to empower them to stand up for themselves, because the grooming process is very slow, and you do these little tiny, 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 tiny steps, gradually increasing the bad conduct. And before you know it, we have a situation just like this one.
Right, and it's just terrible. And you have this law enforcement event that happened at some point when he was living with the family, and it led to him no longer living with this family, according to police. Where, according to the victim, Pavluchuk says something allegedly along the lines of, if you don't love me anymore, kill me. And he apparently brings like a gun into the room. Police end up being called. And it's interesting in the police report because the line changes that is told to police. And it was something along the lines of, if you hate me so much, kill me, which is very different from, I feel like if it was, if you don't love me anymore, kill me. And if that's actually what was said, but police aren't told that, let's just say they were, and it feels like that could have opened the door to an investigation about something that was going on. But the way that the story appears to have been changed, at least from police's perspective, this is something where it almost gets brushed under the rug, and you don't have a victim who comes out until years later. And that's certainly the right when to do it. But like, it feels like police were close, but they weren't able to, at the time see it.
Yeah, and it may not be the police's fault at all. It could be,
Right.
it could be a couple of different things. It could be the police. Maybe they could have pushed a little bit harder, say, "Hey, this just sounds kind of fishy. I want to know exactly what led up to this whole conversation." Again, not to blame the police for it, because in these cases you have a young person who is in their early teens, maybe not quite at their teens. They're embarrassed, they're shamed, or they're scared. They don't want to get somebody in trouble, and so they don't have the legs, so to speak, to stand up and speak out about what's happened, or they don't have the knowledge yet, or the confidence, or they don't have the security feeling. It is not uncommon at all, and I think we've had this conversation before, for men who have been sexually abused as children. Not uncommon at all for them to be in their 40s or 50s before they're ready to have a public-facing conversation about what happened. For women, it's actually statistically a little bit younger. Women who have been sexually abused as a child are more likely to be able to be in their recovery path in their 30s or 40s before they're ready to have a public facing conversation about abuse. And even though they may have been dealing with it with therapy and counselors through the years, a lot of times people are not ready to talk about it publicly until they get to be much older. And so that is not a shocking that's not a shocking piece of this story, is that it's that the child who was abused has waited until they're somewhat older. They appear to really be ahead of the statistical schedule that you often see, where people are not reporting these things until they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s.
How do you prepare a victim? Because it takes incredible bravery to come forward, to go to the police, to even open up about something that might have happened in childhood to a parent, for example. And it takes so much bravery, just that initial part. But you think of the process of a trial, and there's going to be a defense attorney, especially if it's years later and it's their word against the word of the defendant. And these defense attorneys, as we know, I mean, it's every person deserves a defense, and some of them will be very aggressive in attacking the story and in a truth that somebody has. Like, how do you prepare a victim to kind of dig in for the long haul, because it's not something that's going to be solved overnight?
Yeah, that is something that is widely talked about in the circles of attorneys who are doing this type of work, and it's called trauma informed attorneying, um, or trauma informed representation. You really have to be mindful that everybody who comes to you saying that they have been abused, some will be in a place where they would be strong enough to give a deposition or go to a trial. Some are not, and you have to have that conversation with clients very early on and let them know what it looks like to be in litigation, because a case could take 2, 3, sometimes unfortunately 4 years to get through the court system, because the court system is very slow. There's a lot of times where there will be discovery questions that have to be answered in writing, and the client helps with that. There are instances where there will be depositions taken, and that will be very traumatic. And so you have to be able to have conversations openly with the clients about what the process looks like, and do they feel as if they're strong enough, or in a place where they're ready to do that. And I've had clients who have had these tragic abuse stories, who have come to me, and once we have a conversation about, hey, this is what a case looks like, and I am the only desire that I have is to do what's right for the client. If the client tells me, Chris, now that you've told me what this looks like, I'm not sure that I'm up to it, I'll let them know what their options are. But I've had clients who just say, I'm not at the place of my recovery yet where I can do a deposition, or where I can go to trial, or where I can answer discovery questions. And that can have, for them, statute of limitations implications, right? Because you can't, in all states, there's not an unlimited window of time within which you can file a case. There are statute of limitations that differ from state to state, but it's a very difficult conversation that doesn't just happen usually in one conversation with clients. You have to usually build up some trust. You have to let them know that you care about them genuinely and their well-being, and then have a conversation about what moving forward with the case looks like. Because like you said, the lawyers on the other side are not going to give them an easy time.
No, and it takes, I mean, just such strength to come forward with the story of what happened. And, in this case, it's just horrific. It was I mean, they're all difficult reads when you go through a police report like this, but this one, very, very disturbing. We'll see what happens next. Chris Klotz, sex abuse attorney, thank you as always for taking the time to be with us on Law and Crime. We appreciate it.
100% anytime, Chris. Thank you.
That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and we are also streaming on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.